Hey there, mathematicians. It's Miss Johnson, and today we're going to be looking at converting measurements. Converting is just another way of saying change. So we're going to be changing measurements to different measurements. So there's three different kinds of measurements. There's units of length, there's units of weight, and there's units of capacity or volume. And we're not going to look at every single one of them. We're just going to look at some examples of each, okay? All right, so let's look at units of length. So here we have a yard. So we could say that we ran a yard. Well, we could say we ran 3 feet. 1, 2, 3, because 3 feet is the same thing as 1 yard. Or we could say I ran 36 inches because 36 inches is also equal to 1 yard. So all those things are equivalent. 1 yard is equal to 3 feet, and a yard is equal to 3 feet, and 3 feet is equal to 36 inches. So a yard is also equal to 36 inches. They're all equivalent. And what we're going to be learning about is how do we convert or change back and forth between different units of measure. Okay? All right, let's look at centimeters and millimeters. So if you ever look at a ruler and you look at the side of the ruler, it says centimeters. But sometimes you're asked to measure in millimeters, and some kids are like, well, there's not millimeters on here. But there are. The little lines are the millimeters, and then the largest line right here is the centimeters. So it takes 10 millimeters to equal a centimeter. And so if we count here, you always start at 0, right? And we just do like little bunny hops. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. See, it takes 10 millimeters to equal 1 centimeter. So if we wanted to know if we were at 4 centimeters, right? So let's say we drew a line, right? That was 4 centimeters. We said, okay, well, how many millimeters is that? Well, it's 10 in each one, right? So let me switch back. So this has 10. This one has 10. This centimeter has 10. And this centimeter has 10. So 10, 20, 30, 40. So 4 centimeters equals 40 millimeters. Okay, so that's converting. We switched it, right? We switched it. So wanted to show you that. All right, let's keep going. And let's look at some units of weight. All right, so 1 ton is 2,000 pounds. And 1 pound is 16 ounces. So they have 16 of these little things here. All right, so that's the units of weight that we use. That's the standard. And then the metric is gram and kilogram. So a gram is about the size of a paper clip. And then a kilogram is about holding like a dictionary. Okay, so, and I'm going to show you different ways to change back and forth from the different weights, all right? And then we also have units of capacity. So capacity is liquid measure, right? So the standard form is to use gallons. I'm trying to find it on here. So the gallons are here, okay? So 1 gallon is 4 quarts, 1, 2, 3, 4, or it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pints. It's 16 cups. All right. So there's lots of conversions for liquid measures, right? And this is the standard. This is standard form of, this is what we use, right? But in science, we use milliliters a lot. So in science, we use a graduated cylinder, right? And there's milliliters here. So the 10 milliliters would be right here. Right? So it's not a milliliter, is a very small amount, right? One thing that sometimes kids get confused that I want to make sure everybody understands is these units of capacity, these are not regular, these are not weight ounces, these are fluid ounces here, Okay, so in 1 cup, there's 8 fluid ounces. So 8 ounces of like liquid. Okay, that's what that FL stands for, fluid ounces. So some kids get confused because like up here we talked about that 16 ounces is 1 pound. Well, a cup or 2 cups does not equal, because 2 cups would be 16 fluid ounces. 2 cups does not equal a pound. Okay, because different things have different weight, right? So it wouldn't equal that. So like if we have 16 fluid ounces of honey, a fluid ounce of honey weighs 1.5 ounces. So 16 fluid ounces would weigh 24 ounces, which is 1.5 pounds. So 16 fluid ounces does not equal a pound. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew the difference from that. Okay, so when we're dealing with cups and liquid, right, it's fluid ounces, which is different than the ounces that we use for weight. Okay, all right, so I wanted to remind you that every conversion that you will have to make can be found on your reference materials. Okay, and here's our length, the volume and capacity. So this is our liquid measurements, and then our weight and mass measurements. Okay, and you can see a lot of them that we talked about on here, right? 1 ton is 2,000 pounds. This is what you will need to use when you have a question that asks you to convert between measurements. Okay, you will need to use your chart. So if your teacher hasn't given you one, you need to ask them for one, because this is what you'll use to get the conversions. Now, some of them hopefully you have memorized, like 3 feet in a yard and 12 inches in a foot. But if you don't have it memorized, it's okay, because it's right here. They could also ask you, like on the STAR test, they could also ask you about time, but they're assuming by now that you know your time references, like 1 day is 24 hours, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. So those are ones that you should know by now, right? So 12 months in a year, right? So they could ask you about a time conversion too. So not every measurement is on here, but if it's not on here, you should know it. Okay? All right, so let's kind of look at how we might have a question asked about this. Well, one thing that we have to know and remember is that conversion relationships are proportional relationships. They're proportional relationships because it's like for every. So 1 foot, every 1 foot has 12 inches in it. Right? It doesn't change. It's the same over and over and over again. So it's going to create a proportional relationship. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this first question here. It says, how many inches are in 6 feet? Okay, so if we set up like a little table and we set inches to feet, well, from our chart, what do we know? That 1 foot is 12 inches. 1 foot is 12 inches, right? So 12 inches is 1 foot. And how many feet do we need to go to? 6. So hey, look at that. I made the chart perfect. All right, so at the top, so if it's 1 foot is 12 inches, then 2 feet would be 24, 36, right? We're just adding 12 each time. So if you don't know your 12s, right, you could just add 12 each time like this, and so on. So 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, and then 72. So 6 feet is equivalent to 72 inches. So it's a proportional relationship. This is what I call a ratio table, but remember you could also set up a proportion. Well, 12 inches to 1 foot, and then I need to know about 6 feet. So the 6 would go at the bottom with the feet, and I don't know how many inches is that. And then we would say 1 times what gives us 6? 1 times 6. Whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. So I multiplied the bottom by 6. I'm going to multiply the top by 6. So x is going to be 12 times 6. So x is 72 inches. All right, let's look at a metric one. It says how many liters are in 500 milliliters? Okay, so we're comparing liters and what? And milliliters. Okay, so I'm going to go up to the chart and I'm going to find that relationship. Liters to milliliters. Okay, it's volume, right? It's volume. This is customary. This is metric. So it says 1 liter is 1,000 milliliters. 1 liter is 1,000 milliliters. So I come back down here and I say 1 liter is 1,000 milliliters. And it's asking me how many liters. So x liters to 500 milliliters. All right, let's cross multiply on this one. So remember, when we cross multiply, we multiply the diagonals. So we're going to say, I'm just going to write it over here. So 1,000 x equals 1 times 500. So 1,000 x equals 500. Divide both sides by 1,000. Because 1,000 times something will give me 500. So it's 500 divided by 1,000. And we do neato, numerator in, denominator out. So 1,000 cannot go into 5, 1,000 cannot go into 50, 1,000 cannot go into 500. Bring up my decimal. 1,000 can go into 5,000. 5 times 0 left over. So our x is 0.5 milliliters. There are other ways that you can answer the questions besides setting up a proportion. Like sometimes it's intuitive that some kids are really good at knowing when do you multiply, when do you divide. It's always going to be a multiplication or division situation though when you're converting. It's never going to be add or subtract, okay? So some kids kind of are really good at knowing which is which, and that's fine. You don't have to set up a proportion, but if you get confused and you're like, oh, I don't know, should I multiply or divide? Then absolutely set up the proportion, and the proportion will tell you. Okay, so like here, right, the proportion told us to multiply 12 times 6 to get our answer. And here, the proportion told us we would have to divide 500 by 1,000 to get our answer. Okay, so proportions can be really helpful with that. All right, so in our next video, we're going to be practicing with some conversion questions. And yeah, it's just going to take some practice.